Hello, welcome to HITLAB's 2023 Summit. Do you mind introducing yourself for those who don't know, your name, your title, and the organization that you represent?
Thank you. It's nice to be here. My name is Peter Niemi. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of RecoveryPlus, recoveryplus.health if you're looking for us online. And RecoveryPlus is a home-based cardiac rehabilitation company.
Great, so thank you so much for joining us today. I was wondering, is this your first HITLAB Summit? Have you been here before, or?
We were here last year as things started to enter the post-pandemic phase.
Yeah.
There was one day of in-person HITLAB, and I was on a panel then.
Okay.
And then we were very excited this year, realizing it was going to be all in person. So 3 fun-filled days at the HITLAB Summit. So, and I have known Stan. I met him probably about 16 years ago when I was at Columbia Business School.
Okay, so you went to Columbia Business School, and I understand that you went to Columbia for your undergrad too.
Yes, that's
So
right.
I have a source that tells me that the Ivy League is totally lame compared to the Big Ten. Do you have any comments on that?
This is unverified, and it is not from a reliable source. The Ivy League has and always will rule.
All right, well, I think your football team has something to say about that.
Except for in football, I will grant you that.
Moving on. So you said that last year you were on a panel at the HITLAB Summit, or last time that you attended a summit, you were on a panel. And this year, I understand that you had some time to yourself. You were able to go up and give your own speech. So what did you have to say that people wanted to hear about?
I mostly talked about power play strategies in the neutral zone, but then I moved on and talked about telehealth and its application specifically to chronic care management, which is a large part of what we do. In traditional telehealth, as I think about it anyway, that means you have the option to go to a doctor in person, or you have the option to have a virtual visit, a telehealth visit. And in fact, in many cases, patients prefer the telehealth visit over in person for obvious reasons like no waiting rooms and things like that. In our case, however, we're talking about a population that is not receiving care at all. 80% of people in our category are not going to cardiac rehab, and they should be. So telehealth is not an option, it's the only option.
Yeah.
It's the only way we're going to be able to deliver care to people in rural areas, to marginalized, underserved populations who need this type of life-saving care. The unfortunate fact is that it's usually the people who need this type of treatment the most who are the least able to access it. And we're trying to close that gap.
I'm wondering how you and RecoveryPlus has used the increase in popularity that telehealth has had since the pandemic to leverage your company and reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, interesting timing, because we really started talking about this and getting it launched. I think we went to a conference in February of 2020, so we all know what happened in March of 2020 shortly thereafter. So we have been growing our company. We've been working this throughout the pandemic. On the plus side, of course, attitudes towards telehealth have changed dramatically. It's gone from being a novelty to a necessity, as many healthcare professionals were not seeing people in person at all. It's been accepted by patients, and it's been adopted by healthcare professionals who recognize that it can drive efficiency and expand the reach of their practice. Importantly, for practices like ours, who are insurance reimbursable, the reimbursement regulations towards telehealth visits have loosened and changed dramatically. They're not just for rural areas anymore. There are not all of the limitations that there used to be on getting reimbursed for a telehealth visit. There's still a long way to go, but it got a lot easier. So now, as we find ourselves in the hopefully post-pandemic era, we find ourselves in the post-pandemic era where people's eyes have been opened to the potential of telehealth to scale access to care, and we're confident we can continue that momentum and make it really pay off on the great promise we all feel it has.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you are a telehealth company, but you do have an in-person location where patients can come in. So you are pushing a little bit of a hybrid model. Do you think that this sort of in-person and telehealth model will become more popular now that people are able to come more in person? Or do you think there's still going to be a dichotomy? It's either telehealth or an in-person doctor's visit or a therapy session.
It's an interesting trend with a lot of moving parts to it. Fundamentally, I would say we did open a clinic/office in New York. Mainly, we needed an office in New York, and we do have a lot of New York patients who inquired about seeing us in person. So it was a natural fit. I will say this definitively, we are a home-based treatment company because that's the problem we're solving. We're not solving the problem for people in New York who can get around easily. One of our co-founders, Tim Bilbrey, lives out in Dumas, Texas, in West Texas. The closest cardiac rehab facility to him is 300 miles away.
Wow.
That's actually not very far to a Texan, but to Northeasterners, that's a long
Yeah.
way to go for care, especially if
Right.
you have to go 2 or 3 times a week. And if you're perhaps not able to drive on your own, which many of our patients are. So now, not only you, but the caregiver has to go. And the wheels fall off quickly.
Yeah.
And care just does not get administered. So the solution to the disparity in care for cardiac rehab is going to be solved by a home-based, asynchronous solution. And that's what we offer.
Absolutely. So while you're here at the summit, are there any other speakers or talks that you're interested in looking at, or any trends that you've been following that you want to learn more about, that you could even maybe apply to RecoveryPlus?
Absolutely. I've learned a ton about telehealth. The speaker before me was talking about telehealth and how it applies to clinical trials and recruitment. We're in the midst of conducting our own trial, so that was really intriguing to hear her perspectives. And then Dr. David Berger from Downstate Hospital, who we're partners with, did a great talk yesterday about the problems with access to care, the differences in access to care when you overlay rural populations, when you overlay lower income populations, when you overlay minority populations, when you overlay people who are alone or can't travel.
Yeah.
That 20% of people who aren't getting the care they need becomes even lower. It gets into the single digits. So I'd love to hear how everyone here is thinking so entrepreneurially, thinking so forward-looking and innovatively about these problems and how we can apply telehealth to solve them. They're real problems, and there haven't been real solutions, and there's hope that now there are.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last question. How is accessibility a central part of the mission of RecoveryPlus?
Access to care through home-based is the entire mission.
Yeah.
Our target is not the 20% of people who are able to get care. I live in New York. If I needed to go to rehab of any kind, and I have, I can hop on the Crosstown bus and be at a rehab center in 5 minutes. I'm one of the lucky ones. I have good health care coverage. Okay? Our target is the 80% who are not getting care at all, whether it's coverage issues or, like I said, to borrow a phrase from our business colleagues in real estate, location, location, location. There's simply no economic way to have enough in-person clinics to serve. If there was, someone would have done it, right? It's not economically possible. It's not a profitable company. The only way to make it work is to make it home-based, location-agnostic, and time-agnostic as well, asynchronous.
All right. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining me today
Great job,
and for
Sam.
answering all my questions.